Avon, and this is First Drafts That Glow, a short story writing project featuring me. Now, what I do is I take a bunch of random words. These words were taken from suggestions on my social profile on Mastodon. I take the words, pile them together, and then I develop a story from those, normally off the cuff. Sometimes I do a small amount of character planning, depending on what kind of story it is, like the last one, Spectacular Tick, which was a murder mystery of sorts. Well, not of sorts, it was a murder mystery. So I did do like character plotting a little bit beforehand. Like I named all the main characters, the country guy on the beach. I didn't know he was going to be in the story, so I named him as I went. This story was intended to be a coming of age story, and they are complicated. Coming of age stories are complicated. They're not easy to do. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of payoffs and, the things that they overcome and the things that they learn sometimes, have to go through a few drafts. So that's not an easy get with the writing style that I do. I guess I should look into more modern coming of age stories and see if I can maybe do that in the future. But this one turned into a bit of a teen drama, which is still pretty good. I wasn't sure about my ability to write this kind of story because I do tend to go a bit grandiose. I wasn't really sure I'd be able to, bring it down a bit because I do like, over the top and, just craziness. And, that's fine. That's a type of writing for sure. But when you're trying to write, just like a modern teen, coming of age or drama, which I was focused on making it a modern, believable kind of thing. I really wanted to do that. So I tried really hard, came up with a drama instead of a coming of age, which coming of age is kind of drama, but I digress. Now, before I dive into everything, a bit of a plug for myself. Since I don't have show sponsors, since I don't have thousands of eyes on my videos yet, like and subscribe, I'm going to plug myself. And I, along with my friend Athens Cascade, we designed some coloring books, Mindful and Funky. Look at that. Look at how cool that is. They're a little larger than most coloring books, as you can see. Like it covers my whole face there. All the designs and patterns are very different. Some of them are very intricate. Some of them are very simple. I have 3 of them. I have 2 of them physically here. And this one has one page colored by my partner. Isn't that great? They're all just great designs. A bunch of radial mandala kind of stuff. This one has a bunch of hearts on it. And then the third one is more 5-pointed star focused. It's weird that they didn't wait till the 5th book to make one full of 5-pointed stars. I don't know. And then I also designed some journals that are available. They're just available online. There'll be links on my website, nailsthatglow.com. I also opened 2 print-on-demand shops. Hey, note to self, put a link right here. Right here? Yeah? Okay. Did I get that right? Yeah, I'm talking to myself, by the way. But right here, and they'll also be below, in the notes. But one of them's on Redbubble and the other's on Zazzle. They both have items that are specific to each of them. All the designs by me. There's a few of Athens Cascade designs from the coloring book covers. used as textures. I encourage you to check those out. Also, some of my photography's on there. I like a lot of artsy nature texture stuff, but anyways, that's not everybody's cup of tea. Goth kid like me, you would expect me to go to cemeteries. I do have some of that, but right now just the nature stuff. What else? I didn't write next episode's story yet. I'm kind of falling behind on that. I am trying to catch up with, life in general, and it's not easy. If you follow my blog, I'm in recovery. I suffer from social anxiety. And, life is sometimes just difficult. And, I can't motivate properly to even do my voice training, which is something that I really want to do, but I'm trying. So, art and doing this show and reading to you does help a great deal, and I hope you're entertained. And do tell your friends, invite them, Fridays 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to check out the premiere. I do tune in myself to the premiere, so if you're in the chat, we can chat together. I hope you're here right now. Say hi. Hi. You're all beautiful. You're all cute. I love you. And, just a final thing before we get into the story. All of my characters, all my stories, they are involving LGBTQIA plus community members. Also, Black, Indigenous, people of color are huge features in my stories. I try to layer all that in. Sometimes I make it a specific point to point out to make an ethnicity obvious, and other times I leave it more ambiguous so people can see the character through their own eyes, which I think is also important. But yeah, I feel, trans and queer experiences are kind of lacking in a lot of the genres that I'm writing, and, sometimes they're just kind of... some of you try really hard, and, not being critical or anything, but some of y'all's stories are just... It'll be great when some of you get better. I'm kidding. Don't send me hate mail. Anyways, my website's nailsthatglow.com. You can find me on Mastodon, Eldritch Cafe, Nails That Glow, and Tumblr as well, Nails That Glow. Do you notice a theme here? It's all Nails That Glow. Nails That Glow, but my nails are silver. They have been lately. I'm not sure why I've been going for silver instead of bright colors or a non-binary flag or something, but here we are. All right. Now, the story is called Leeward Pot. But, I had to make sure I understood what leeward meant, and then I looked it up, and I was like, how am I going to fucking use that? Like, I already decided that was going to be part of the title. So, I'm not sure I did the title justice, but it fashioned a story that I wrote. So that's the important thing, that I based it on these words on the title and the other words that I had selected. So that's the important thing. That's part of the project. Writing these stories in one sitting, not doing any heavy editing, just punching it out, and then, cold reading it for you, because it's fun and I love you. All right, you ready? I don't know why I do that. I haven't done that every show, but... I need help. All right, here we go. Leeward Pot, a First Drafts That Glow story by me, Avon. 1 week. That is how long it has been since Drew told his teacher to stop using the name in the book and change the pronouns. 1 week since coming back from winter break to see how his friends and classmates would react to his post online about his new self. Just over 1 week since breaking up with Robert, everything was so new, and life felt new and somehow easy compared to the past few years to Drew. The dozen messages and the likes and boosts from Robert on every post Drew had made was so cringe. What could be worse, Drew would think? Robert could have hated Drew for transitioning. It was surprising that Robert was still interested. Drew never thought of Robert as anything but hetero. None of that mattered much now. There was only one thing Drew had been thinking about, and he was going to see her in class today and finally talk to her as a man and ask her out. Math class. I hate maths, Drew said under his breath. His dad was from some nebulous part of the UK he never seemed to want to talk about. Always called math maths. Walking into the room just before the teacher came back in, Drew looked around to see if Lee was sitting in her seat. No luck. I'll do it after class, he tells himself over and over as he sits. I still have to tell you how different you look. Drew. Sorry, man. Eric blushes for slipping the necro name. Drew smirks. He knows it's not aggression. It takes time for people to adjust. It's cool, Eric. Thanks for the quick correct, and thanks for the compliment. You don't think my hair looks too douchey? Not at all. Eric touches his own hair. I wish I had hair as thick as yours. I have to add a full fist of wax just to keep mine from turning into a ball of fuzz. Slipping into conversation about homework and shoes, Drew missed when Lee came into the room and sat. Her seat was few rows up, and she always had her hair in a high ponytail. So easy to spot in a room. The bell to start class stops Drew just before he can get up to talk to her. The entire class, Drew hears nothing about the review for the test. Doesn't notice Eric asking for a pencil with an eraser. Doesn't even register the teacher telling him to turn off his phone ringer. Oh, sorry, Miss West, looking at his phone. It's the doctor's, nothing important. I turned it off. With his entire face a bright red, he tries to bury his head from view in his baggy sweater sleeves with little success. Right before the end of class, he feels his heart thump in his chest in a new way. He felt a rush when he decided to talk to her, but now it was here. What am I saying? Anyways. The bell rings and he is next to her chair while she is still packing her notebook. Hi, Lee. He grasps the backpack strap over his shoulder with both hands as if it held him up. How are you doing today? Lee looks up at Drew and takes a moment to uncrunch her face. Oh, Drew, right? She says, ending with a big smile. Yep. Drew feels his hands grow damp. We've never talked much before, have we? She stands, matching Drew's height. I always felt awkward since I dated Robert last year. I felt awkward as well, but I broke it off with him before the end of break. His mouth dries up, stopping him from continuing as he swallows a few times. A big smile of Lee's face relaxes Drew. Lee moves to start walking out. Well, I hope we can get to know each other now that we have gotten that out of the way. Hold up, Drew says louder than intended, waiting for her to turn around before continuing. I wanted to talk about that, actually. Lee raises an eyebrow. Oh? Yeah, I wanted to know if you might want, to go see a movie or bowling with me or something, this weekend. The release of words felt like all the pressure in his head was gone and the dryness in his mouth and dampness of his hands were normalized. I think I've, had a crush on you for just a bit, and I figured, trailing off, looking at Lee. Lee waits for a moment before noting that Drew lost his steam. She smiles large. Oh, Drew, you are incredibly sweet. I would like to get to know you and be friends, but I'm sort of in a thing already. Drew feels his head get warm. Oh, I see. It is someone I met online. She's a game streamer like me. We started to stream together last month. Do you watch game streams? Drew nods. Yeah, I've watched your streams a few times. I had no idea the other girl was your girlfriend, and fuck, he says, looking down. Hey, if you would have asked me months ago, I would have said no as well. Did Robert ever tell you why we broke up? Drew shakes his head. Lee sighs and looks up as the middle bell rings. If you ever want to hang out as friends, we can talk about it. Just don't think you shouldn't ask girls out. You're smoother than you think, cutie. Grabbing Drew's free hand, holding it with both of hers. You got this. She rushes out of the room as Drew withdraws, making his way into the next class. That night at home, Drew watches old streams of Lee playing 2 weeks in Dwarfcraft. He works on his homework as Lee's voice fills his earbuds. After dinner, he returns to the streams and starts surfing the flashgrams in Boing Bing to see if she is posting anything new. He falls asleep listening to her explain strategy for defense from snipers. Drew misses the school bus and just missed the city bus because his earbuds died while he was sleeping, so his alarm was ineffective. His dad threw a wet hand towel at Drew's head to wake him up. A protein smoothie was made to cover for breakfast. The next city bus came just as he was finishing his drink. He grabbed his phone from his bag, forgetting it being attached to a battery, nearly pulling out the contents onto the bus floor. Feeling his head, face, and chest grow hot, Drew curses himself for being so stupid yesterday and last night. His phone chimes a dozen times with messages from Robert. Drew calls the school, telling them he will be late, as he reads the messages from Robert. They go from wanting to talk to Drew to a furious tone. The last 2 messages were of Robert threatening Drew, the last one dead-naming him. Robert is not happy with Drew. Robert is not happy Drew asks Lee out for a date. The necroname thing hurt worse than Robert saying he was going to fight Drew. Fuck him, Drew says, deleting the messages. At school, Drew feels all the eyes looking at him. From the corner of the eye, it looked like they were all pointing and laughing. Drew feels his head sweat and his forehead get warm. The ache behind his eyes could be tears or pressure. He's not sure. Could be, He finds himself in the women's bathroom before rushing out and heading into a stall in the men's room. He begins to sob as the bell rings for the start of next class. At lunch, Drew decides to find Lee and talk to her. He figures persistence is how Robert got him, so it might work on Lee. Walking around the large space, looking over heads and weaving through the maze until seeing the table Lee is at filled entirely. Lee was always popular, but since the drama club was working on a film project, they seemed to spend all school free time together. Drew sits as close as he can, manages a table where he can catch a glimpse of Lee every few moments, as the movements of people allow. He absently grazes at his food until a crash catches his attention. Across from him, Robert slammed his backpack down on the table before shoving it aside to make room for his tray, and not so gently resting that on the table. A snarl of Robert's face gives him the look of a character from the throes of death on a drama to Drew. They both sit in silence for what could have been months before Robert says, "So, get my messages?" His tone nearly betraying his body language. Drew nods, unsure of what to say. He continues to graze on his food absently. Robert snaps his fingers in front of Drew's face. "Hey, we're talking." Drew hated this about Robert. He always needed to be the focus of the conversation when he was angry or upset. If you didn't answer him like you were a soldier, it seemed to make him angrier. Not wanting to play this game, especially since it was 2 men talking, Drew took a deep breath and toned his voice down as low as current practice had allowed. "You do not get to talk to me like that, Robert." Looking down at his plate, he arranges a section to allow for mayonnaise on the side of the plate for his fries. He empties the packet. Robert smacks it out of his hands. The next few moments are blank to Drew. He had only ever been in 2 fights before. On one, when he was 5, and a girl took his toy away because girls did not play with robots. And the second, when a boy at the beach touched his chest. He remembered those times, always felt guilty about them. This one, he didn't remember or felt especially bad that it happened. All he knew was his index finger was dislocated. He had a concussion, and Robert was getting stitches in his forehead from falling onto the table bench after Drew hit him. At home, Drew was alone in the dining room with Mom and Dad. Drew, sorry. You really hurt Robert. I was on the phone with his mom, and the cost of the stitches is going to be all the money we had for your new clothing budget. Drew's mom paces in a small loop behind his dad. Son, his dad's voice making things sound sort of like questions when they were just statements, made Drew made small. With smell? I don't know what I'm saying. The word is misspelled, but it's a proper word. So, yeah, made Drew cringe, I'd say. This is nae funny. You have never gotten into a fight like this before, and this was with someone we thought you cared about still. Looking around the room, he raises his hands. We were told you would have some adjustment with your shots, but nothing like this. You want to tell your da what's going on? Drew feels the impact areas on his own face and hand more as he tries to form words. The headache making his eyes water, or was it sadness? Robert was being mean to me. So, Mom yells, you do not hit people, Drew. No son of mine is going to be picking fights at school. Mom, he sent me nasty texts and he hit my hands. Drew inhales deeply and slowly. The feeling of massive weight on his chest and the binder was not helping. Sitting down, Dad motions for Mom to sit as well. He sighs deeply. Okay, lad. Tell us what this cunt said. Smacking his arm with the back of her hand, Mom's face frowns at Dad. What is wrong with you? It's how my dad talked to me as a lad, he says, shrugging. Not in this house, she replies with a stern voice. Yes, miss, he says, nodding. Now, Drew, tell us what happened. Where are these texts? I deleted them. Drew feels powerless to continue and begins to cry. Drew's hands are taken by Mom and patted. Take your time, dear. I woke up and had to wait for my phone to charge a bit, and I saw them on the bus. They were mean and needy. I deleted them so I wouldn't keep reading them. Boy, sorry, lad, Dad says, blushing slightly. Don't let those cunts... sorry, he says, raising his hands up, looking at Mom. Don't let people live in your head rent-free. Well, at lunch he was doing this macho thing of slamming his bag down and snapping at me. Drew feels his head and chest get heavy and damp again. He then smacked the mayo pack out of my hands, and I don't really know what happened next. You beat the shit out of him is what you did, Mom said. Dad, looking surprised, turns to Mom. Wait, you can say shit, but I can't say... So help me, if you say that word again, I'm inviting your mom and my mom over here to stay for a month. Dad sits back and straight up. Okay, so why was he mad? You said he didn't get mean or physical. You said he was just being a bit desperate when you broke up. What changed? Drew collected his thoughts and didn't feel this was something his parents would understand and had no idea how to say it to make it matter. Why does it matter? It won't happen again. Mom moves to the seat next to Drew. Not how we work. You know this. Whatever it is, we can do it as a family. She looks to Dad and he nods. Well, stopping with a choke in his throat. Well, See, I have this crush on a girl. Mom and Dad look at each other with wide eyes, then to Drew. That is excellent, son, Dad says boisterously. Well, why do you need to beat on Robert? He dated her last year. Mom looks up in the air, slightly praying to unnamed entities, as she never went to church. Baby, out of all the girls in your school, why one your ex-boyfriend dated? Drew looks up with water-filled eyes. She's just pretty, and her hair is so smooth, and he begins to sob softly. I think I know what we need to do, son. Let's go for a ride. Standing, he motions Drew to join him. Let's go, boy. We got man things to talk about. In the car, Dad set auto drive to the mall. He gives Drew the option to pick the music, and they both sing along to David Bowie and Depeche Mode songs until they arrive. Inside, Dad leads Drew to the hobby store. They browse for nearly an hour as Dad picks up a few special units for his Warhammer game. Drew grabs a Gundam model kit and a few paint supplies. As they are checking out, Dad says, You want to talk now or later when we are working on these? A smile comes across Drew's face. Both, he says. In the food court, they both get sticky buns and soda. After a few bites, Dad clears his throat. Okay, son. I know you know all of the basics. I'm more interested in what you want to know. Drew shrugs. Why is Robert so angry? I asked Lee out. Well, some boys can't share toys, hearts, or friends. Some of them don't really see a difference between any of those things either. It comes with maturity. Girls or femme, what do I say? Femme is more general, Dad, these days. Okay, well, femme people tend to mature faster because, masculine people tend to be really stupid about things. Stuffing a large piece of sticky bun in his mouth with a gleeful smile, he makes eye contact with Drew, nodding. Drew follows suit. They both chuckle under their full mouths. An hour later, they're in the garage setting up their stations for their projects. Drew setting up a cutting mat and taking stock of the components. Dad looking over his other troops and vehicles and pulling the primer and colors for his new figures. The space filled with random selection of 90s hip-hop. The space filled with a random selection of 90s hip-hop, both of them nodding their heads. Soon Mom shows up, spinning her fingers in the air, giving the universal sign language for, wrap it up, there's school tomorrow. Drew hugs his dad and feels much lighter. The next day in school, Drew doesn't just think people are looking at him. He knows they are. Before he makes it to first period, the vice principal asks him to come to the office. Inside, Robert, his dad, and Drew's dad are sitting in the office. Robert's dad demands Drew be expelled. Drew's dad explains how hostile Robert had been. The argument gets heated but stays at a low simmer thanks to the skillful mediation of the principal. The principal finishes typing a few lines before looking at everyone in the eyes. So, here's what's going to happen. Robert and Drew will be suspended for a month. According to other students and what each of these young men have said, I believe they were both at fault, but Robert did seek out the conflict. So Robert will also have a month of detention when he comes back. I will require Drew to attend a counseling session as an evaluation. If you both agree this is satisfactory, we can move on from here and hopefully find a path to friendship. I know your families had become friends over the last few years. The dads look at each other, nod, and shake hands. Robert, with his sullen and slug-like body language, shakes Drew's hand. Back at home, in the garage, Drew and his dad work on their projects. Not talking, not even really looking at one another, music making it impossible to talk even if they wanted to try. After 2 weeks of this, they're both done with their projects, since Mom would only let them play during the day. At the end of the month, 2 projects in the garage in the garage with Dad and 2 counseling sessions, Drew was ready to go back to school. Part of his punishment was no social networking or emails that were not school-related. The gossip was overwhelming the first day back. The number of questions about beating Robert until he passed out and how Drew threw Robert to the floor were all stories Drew wished he had either seen or actually had done. As far as he knew, he hit Robert once and that was it. His index finger still felt sore. The embellishment offered him a degree of celebrity and notoriety. None of it he confirmed, but most people just said what they wanted and then moved on. It wasn't until the period before lunch that Drew felt entirely out of place. The math class. He would see Lee again, and he was unsure what she had heard or thought about the entire situation. He wanted to ask her out again, but his dad's voice in his head reminding him to find some chill and just talk to her without expecting anything other than friendship. Another part of him argued that this was stupid dad shit and that he needed to ask her again and again with more assertive energy. The argument in the abstract played in his head, making Lee wave her hand before Drew's face as she kept saying his name. "Hey, Drew, 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 you in there?" she says. Eric sits, noticing the scene, and kicks Drew's foot with ninja skill. Drew snaps to the real world, looking at Eric first, seeing him nod to Lee. "Oh, hi, Lee," Drew says with a rather large smile. "Hey, can we talk before lunch?" Her voice grows sober. "I need to ask a few things." A punk band begins to play loudly in Drew's head as he smiles. "Sure thing." "Great. See you then." Eric waits for Lee to sit down, then taps Drew's shoulder with his fingertip. "Hey man, I saw Robert's stitches. So brutal." Holding up his hand, showing the finger still sporting marks from having been dislocated by the jaw of Robert. "Wasn't that awesome, Eric? I'm not proud of it." "Oh, sorry man," Eric huffs, rolling his eyes. "So Lee wants to holler at you later, huh?" The punk band in Drew's head begins to play again. "Yeah, but I'm not sure what it's about." "What else could it be about, man? She wants to party with you in the best way." Eric moves his head around. Drew blushes. "Calm down. She said she was seeing someone online last time we talked." "That was a month ago, hermano," Eric says. "You never know. A month is forever when it comes to dating." Drew laughs slightly. "What are you talking about?" You'll see, Eric says as the class bell rings. Lee leaves the classroom quickly when the bell dismisses everyone. Drew is held up by Eric, giving him more macho advice and quotes from movies Drew is sure are problematic from the tone of the quotes. Just before lunch, Drew goes to the bathroom, brushes his teeth, makes sure his hair is perfect, and applies a bit of the scented lotion his mom gave him recently. She said men she liked often had a nice scent, but nothing too strong. She said this patchouli scent was the right amount of musky for her handsome son. She even had an extra undershirt since he started sweating from his pits more recently. So much to get used to, he thought. Seeing Lee as he entered the lunch space, she motions him over. She leads him to a corner where they both stand slightly out of sight of the rest of the room, and far enough away to not have extra ears without them being obvious about it. "Well, hi there, Lee. Drew starts and is cut off. "Listen, I need to know. Has Robert called you or messaged you at all?" Her eyes wide as she speaks in a husky whisper. Drew's mind, having been playing exciting and energetic punk music, suddenly goes quiet and cold. Every word he thinks about vanishes as he tries to process that Lee does not want to talk about him and her, but about Robert. No. He was told not to communicate with me until his detention was over. Why? Lee pulls out her phone. The first few pictures were of Robert centering his stitches with text saying, "See how I suffered?" Ones after that were less decent and more demanding of a reply. The one of him nude, kneeling on the floor, crying, pleading for Lee to contact him, disturbed Drew. What in the hell? He says. Did you tell anyone about this? Lee shakes her head. No, he sent me this voice message. She puts an earbud in Drew's ear. The sound quality was low, and the tin quality of the recording was very annoying. There was a static and some sound like paper. Robert's voice filled Drew's ear like he was holding the phone's mic space inside of his mouth. Lee, I miss you so much. It was wrong of me not to wait for you to decide to come back. I should have never dated and I knew that bitch was a liar. You saw what she did to my head. Call me. We can work this out. The rest of the message seemed to be Robert's voice, but distorted beyond comprehension by whatever the paper sound was. Drew, handing back the earbud, says, We need to go to our parents for this, Lee. Something is very wrong with him. I never expected him to necroname and misgender me like that. I'm afraid what he might do if he finds out I'm even telling you. I need help. I thought he might have been sending you messages or something we could both take to get him to stop. Drew frowns. I can check my spam and stuff. I block them on my socials and... Oh, funky Cole Medina. What? She asks. Drew turns his phone to show Lee. A rough picture edited Drew months before coming out with Robert choking him out. They both leave the lunchroom, hearing Robert shouting, Where are you, Lee? Thankfully not noticing them. In the principal's office, Lee and Drew explain the situation and forward the pictures and messages to the detective on video conference with them. Calling both of their parents, Lee and Drew are told to stay until they are picked up, and they would be taken to the police station to be interviewed. Sorry, there was a grammatical error there. I had to read over it. Inside of his head, Drew is unable to make sense of anything today. Robert was dangerous? Lee came to him for help? Like some kind of romantic drama where the boyfriend wants to keep both his exes. Drew just wanted to ask Lee out again. Seeing how the pictures and words from Robert made Lee afraid, he could only think of what it might feel like if he kept pushing hard on wanting to see her. Nothing felt right to Drew now. As he waited in the detective's office, he fell asleep. My notes are not clear. Or do I call you or Drew? The detective says, entering the room. Please, Drew, he says. Marking the e-paper, the detective taps his earpiece. Hey, Janice, can we add a preferred name to our forms? Thanks. Sitting down, situating a microphone in the center of the desk, then typing on the computer, waits for a moment. Okay, Drew, I'm Detective Kovacs. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then we will be done. Okay, is my friend Lee okay? Oh, sure, she's with Detective Cotton, and we have your other friend Robert in a holding cell on the other side of the building. Looking over Drew slowly, taking a few notes. So, you used to date Robert when you were a girl? No, I used to date him. My apologies. Still getting used to the lingo. Takes a few more notes. Okay, so before you transitioned, you dated him, and you didn't know he dated Miss Lee. No, I knew, but we had never talked about her. Okay, did you and Lee ever talk about Robert before your fight? No, I asked her out, and Robert didn't seem to like that. At least that's what I think. Drew squirms in his chair. Can I get a soda or something? Sure, I'll be right back. The detective leaves the room, returning quickly with a six-pack of Dr. Pepper and a few bags of snacks. Grab whatever. I'm snacking myself. Grabbing one of the bags of pretzels and a can of soda, he motions to Drew. Drew takes a bag of salt and vinegar, chips, and soda. Sips on the soda and eats a few chips before continuing. Sorry, all this happened before I could eat lunch. You veggie or meat? The detective asks. Vegan. Gluten or soy issues? No. Burgers? Sure. Janice, he says after tapping his earpiece, can you get some vegan burgers in here with some fries and whatever else you think might be good for vegan meals? No limits with gluten or soy. Okay, thanks. Looking back at Drew, We'll have something in here better than chips. We'll have something in here better than chips in a few. After an hour and a large vegan burger later, Drew and the detective leave the office. Dad and Mom waiting in chairs just outside of the room. At home, Drew tries to interact with his parents, his head void of logic and structure. All he wanted was to ask a girl out, and now his world was upended all because of the jealousy of a boy. He couldn't imagine what could make anyone act like that. Would he be capable of such things as he grew into manhood? He cried all night looking at his tea supplies. In the morning, his parents told him he was to stay home for a few days. If he wanted, he could hook up his laptop to the living room TV and play games or whatever he liked. Mom and Dad were having conversations and making calls. Hours went by. Days went by. It was another week before Drew was asked if he wanted to go back to school. He had kept up with the work and missed classes, but he did not want to run into Lee. He was told Robert would not be there. Dad said it was not important what Robert was doing, but he was safe and he was getting help. At dinner that night, he was asked again if he was ready to go back to school. He broke down and he cried. Mom, rushing over to him, holds him up as his hair started dripping into the soup. "Baby, what can I do for you?" Shaking his head, Drew keeps sobbing, trying to breathe through the thickness of the tears. From across the table, Dad's voice comes through clearly. "Son, come with me tonight to my game. Son, come with me to my game night." Okay. I don't know if I need to read that sentence again, but the dad's asking Drew to come with him to his game night. Goodness. "You want to take our teen son to a bar?" Mom says. "Oh, most of the players are sober, and it's a Warhammer campaign. Lots of kids there learning the game and playing themselves." "Okay, fine," leaning down to catch Drew's eyes. "You'll go with Dad, yeah?" Drew nods weakly. "And stuff your face, boy. We're going to head out in about 5. Pick yourself out of the pit for a moment. You can lean on me while we drive." The ride to the bar was longer than the 10 minutes it had always been. Drew had ridden with Mom, dropping Dad off to play this massive miniature game before. Never allowed in because it was supposed to be a bar. Drew wonders what had changed. "Son, you don't have to talk, but I imagine this has to do with the girl and your ex being cruel and everything in between that." He pauses, giving his son space. As he parks, he takes a deep breath. Real relationships, son, are built on trust, respect, and a willingness to accept people for who they are and where they are. If this guy is unable to do that with you or this girl, that's a him problem. Looking out of the window, waving at a few people carrying cases and some wheeling tackle boxes into the bar. "I know this past few months has been unique for you. Hell, for me and your mom as well. This is new ground for us all. A pause in his voice like he's about to cry himself. "I can't say I don't miss my little girl, but I don't miss her as much as I love seeing you every day. You have an energy and a vibrancy I've never seen in you before. The awkward personality is gone and replaced by a confidence I'm so proud of. Sobbing slightly and rubbing the tears from the bridge of his nose. "I love you, son. I want you to know that whatever happens in your life and whatever you need, your mother and I will always, always take your side. And I'm so very proud of you for demanding what you need." Looking to Drew, he puts one hand on his shoulder, smiles as soft tears roll down his face. "Son, I'm so angry at this boy. I'm so angry this boy hurt you and your friend. You just need to know you did nothing wrong. You're an amazing young man, and I'm sure you'll be an amazing adult, whatever that looks like." Unable to process the ability to make words, Drew simply lets out a heavy cry, hugging his father. Later, inside the bar, the table divided in 4 large sections. His dad walks in, taking up nearly an entire section for himself. A few troops and one beast with banners and colors of pink and teal set up near his front line. The bloody battle saw his dad victorious with half his numbers left with smaller-sized enemies. The table praised him and insisted they would wipe him. Yeah, the table praised him and also insisted they would wipe him out. Drew loved every moment. The next week, Drew goes to school. When math class came around, Lee waves him over. I tried calling you, but your mom had your phone and she said you were on tech detox? Drew smiled. Yeah, my dad and I built and painted models and he showed me a large game of Warhammer. Oh? 40K? With all the technology and monsters? Lee says with glee. You know Warhammer? Oh, well, when I was a bit younger, my dad taught me how to paint the minis and he let me pick the colors, so he ended up with banners of pink and teal. And talk about foreshadowing. My dad painted his pink and teal too, and I just did Gundam models for a while. Wait, did you say foreshadowing? I think I saw these colors. No, that sentence is wrong. Drew runs the conversation in his head. Foreshadowing to what? Lee laughs. Leaning in, she whispers, I'm trans, but nobody knew me from before, so I never bring it up. Oh, wow, Drew says, smiling. No worries, I won't say anything. I wouldn't expect my friends to. Smiling, she hands Drew a bag of sour candies. Want some? Looking down at his hands, sure. Did you say friends? Well, yeah, I told you I wanted to be your friend. As long as you can maintain your chill, she says with a sardonic tone. I'm sure I can, Drew says with a large smile. As they start to eat, Eric comes over to the table with a girl. Her hair is shock of blue and green, wearing black and her jacket filled with buttons and pins. Eric nods over to her. This is Misty. She was dying to meet you, Drew, so I figured we'd sit over here with you and Lee. A band starts playing in Drew's head again, but this time they stop after a quick celebration as Drew tells himself, get to know her first, doofus. What'd you think? I really like this story. I really, really like this story for a number of reasons. One, a story where a parent is being, unquestionably supportive, obviously having, complicated, what's the word I'm saying? They're still having growing understanding of what their child is going through. They still want to support their child. They still want to make their child feel valid. But they're also, still parents. So they're, the kid's not just going to be allowed to walk all over them. You don't get your phone, you're punished, but if you're hurting bad, we're still here, kind of thing. I've known a few trans masculines, and I really hope I've done you guys honor. You're all beautiful. You're all really cute. But yeah, I hope I did you guys justice. I already had decided that Lee was trans before I started writing. I named Lee and Drew and Robert. Those were the only characters I named. Eric, he just kind of came in because I needed somebody, kind of like an exposition, like pulley kind of thing. I don't know. I wasn't sure that I needed to mention it, but I thought it was part of Robert's story without being very explicit about it. Like he had a thing for trans individuals, obviously, and if Lee had trusted him, she would have told him. And that could have been what, push them to break up. And, I left a lot of layers in there to build off of if I come back to this specific story. But I do feel the drama of it and the journey that Drew goes on, I do feel that was a really good arc. And while it does have qualities of coming of age stories, it is not structured exactly like a coming of age story, and that's fine. Sometimes it just teen dramas, and there was growth with Drew. I don't know where the idea of the punk band playing in his head came from, but it felt right for that character. And some of the art I created, I think you can tell there's some punky stuff happening here. I don't know where I am in the picture frame, like where the characters are going to end up, because I haven't finished the art. But yeah, punk rock. And I was really, something in my head remembers the Warhammer people saying that they supported trans people. It was a while ago, so I hope I'm not misrepresenting them, and I hope that's still the case, because I know a lot of people that are into Warhammer, both the medieval and the 40K, and I've even played some of the PC games, which are choice, just like gothic horror, over the top space dramas. Like, oh my god, like the Undying Emperor, like, ugh, pretty crazy stuff. Anyways, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget, coloring books are on sale. The link is on my website, nailsthatglow.com. Be sure to like and subscribe. Also check out, my print-on-demand shops. I'll t-shirts for, the art cards for my episodes. The art cards that are suitable for such things. Some of them are not. I don't know how else to say that. And I'm working on some other things, like some musics and, just stuffs. I'm also I'm working on a more polished audio presentation of some other stuff. I was thinking, I would clean up The Last Vampire, the first story I ever did. I started working on that months ago, but I kind of fell off because, I was doing other stuff. But I am working on that and a few others to be combined in an anthology, and I'm also going to read those. So if you're interested in that, awesome. Supporting the show would be great. Liking, subscribing, sharing, watching another video right after this helps, boost me in the algorithm. Buying stuff from my shops does help a great deal. I'm only making like a few bucks off of each item. I try to keep the royalty percentages really low, or the markup really low, comparatively to what I've seen other people do. So just keep that in mind. I'm not making hundreds of dollars off of, a handful of sales. Like if I sell 4 coloring books, I'm making like maybe $10. Maybe. Actually, I think I need to sell 5 or 6 to make $10. Anyways, so, coloring books are great. Buy them for your family room. Buy them for your, nieces and nephews and grandkids and all sorts of stuff. And, mugs. You don't want to hear me talk about this. You just want to see my pretty face talking about goofy stuff, not about, pitching you more stuff. So I'm not sure what next week's story is going to be, but I do know it is the last of my plotted stories of genres that I haven't worked on. When I'm done with that, I'm very interested in feedback from you. What kind of stories you would like me to write? Would you like me to revisit a genre that I've already worked on? Do you want me to do some more horror? Should I do something where, there's just like a bunch of violence, or maybe a war story or something? Just keep in mind, I really like sci-fi and high fantasy. If you want me to do something cyberpunky or steampunk, I'm definitely going to flavor it my way. Because I never really understood how steampunk is just, adding a few gears to something. Like, your steampunk, if you're building technology that is hundreds of years advanced and using technology that is hundreds of years advanced with these old, things. Like Warehouse 13 did it really well. They did steampunk really well. I recommend checking that show out. Anyways, I'm derailing myself. This has been First Drafts That Glow. This was Leeward Pot. And, thank you so much for joining me. And remember, I love you.